bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the US.
And I will be here at the WION headquarters, getting you all the action from the universe of sport. All that you need to know about your favorite teams and players right here.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Hello everyone, welcome back. You're watching World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Chandra.
And I'm Hem Korsara, and on the show today, President Vladimir Putin threatened to strike decision-making centers in Kyiv with Russia's new hypersonic missile. And this statement came hours after Moscow pummeled Ukraine's energy grid. Putin also reiterated that Moscow will always respond to Western weapon strikes on its territory.
Well, hostilities definitely seem to be increasing, but not just between Russia and Ukraine, in other parts of the world as well. There has been major escalation of hostilities in Syria as rebel forces launched a major offensive in capturing territory from President Bashar al-Assad's forces for the first time in years. Russian airstrikes have been reported in the region as well. Stay tuned as we bring you all the details on that front. Also updates on Bangladesh, as Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar is expected to address both the houses of the Indian Parliament today on the situation in Bangladesh after his meeting with Prime Minister Modi. We'll bring you all the updates on that front as well. Let's start with the headlines.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu threatens Hezbollah with an intensive war if it breaches Lebanon's ceasefire. IDF says it struck a Hezbollah weapons facility in South Lebanon and opened fire on people for breach of truce.
Putin threatens to strike decision-making centers in Kiev with Russia's new hypersonic missile, hours after Moscow pummeled Ukraine's energy grid in an attack that left 1 million people without power. Ukraine to lower its military recruitment age to 18 to address a severe shortage of manpower that has weakened its position on the battlefield and led to the fastest Russian gains in 2 years.
Russian airstrikes kill 19 civilians in Syria's Aleppo as jihadists and Syrian army clash following a major offensive by the rebels, occupying territories after years. Over 200 combatants on both sides killed in the fighting.
US President Joe Biden warns against damaging relations with Canada and Mexico after Donald Trump threatens to slap tariffs on both neighbors when he takes office in January.
As cyclonic storm Fengal marches towards coastal areas of Tamil Nadu, Indian Met Department issues red alert for 9 districts, warning of flash floods for several areas of Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh.
Key ICC meeting today aiming to break the deadlock between India and Pakistan over the 2025 Champions Trophy. The BCCI has refused to send its team to Pakistan.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has emphasized that Russia will not rule out using its new hypersonic Oreshnik missile in a strike on Ukraine.
Now, during a press conference at the end of his 2-day visit to Kazakhstan, Putin also reiterated that Moscow will always respond to Western weapons strikes on its territory. Putin said that the use of the Oreshnik against the military industrial facilities and even decision-making centers, quote-unquote, in Kiev is not ruled out. Now, this threat comes after Russia used the experimental weapons for the first time against the Ukrainian city of Dnipro. The missile has 6 warheads and flies at 10 times the speed of sound. The Russian leader also asserted that the weapon has the destructive power of a meteorite and is comparable in strength to a nuclear strike when used several times at once.
I said that if applied in a single strike using multiple systems at once, using 2, 3, 4 complexes, it would be comparable in force to the use of nuclear weapons. But it is not nuclear because it is A, highly accurate, and B, not equipped with a nuclear explosive device.
Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has described Putin's comments as saber-rattling aimed at disrupting efforts to bring the war to an end.
At the summit in Astana, Putin further recalled US decision to allow long-range strikes in Russia. He said that this decision by the Biden administration could be aimed at creating obstacles for President-elect Donald Trump to negotiate a peace deal. Putin hailed Trump as a clever and experienced leader, voicing confidence that he would be able to find a solution. Biden, meanwhile, put out a reminder of the urgency and importance of supporting Ukraine. A statement released by the White House says the United States stands with more than 50 countries in support of Ukraine and its fight for freedom.
Biden referred to Russia's overnight aerial attack in particular, describing it as outrageous. This was Russia's second big attack on Ukraine's energy infrastructure this month, triggering deep power cuts across the country. Putin says this was in response to Ukraine's strikes on Russian territory with US ATACMS missiles.
Beset by the continual Russian assault, Ukraine has signed off on massive military spending plans for next year. Kiev's 2025 budget plans will see more than $50 billion or 60% of all expenditure go towards defense and security. It's outgunned and Kiev is outmanned and outspent by Moscow. But Kiev has been forced to ramp up defense spending to support the war effort as the conflict nears the 3-year mark.
We're now being joined by Dr. Charles Kupchan from Washington, D.C. He is a senior fellow at the Council of Foreign Relations. Thank you so much for joining us on World DNA, sir. Always a pleasure to have you.
Good to be with you.
Now, Dr. Kupchan, your assessment of Putin's statements, of course, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has called it saber-rattling. Do you feel that at this point this can no longer just be considered rhetoric, considering Russia did use the Oreshnik missiles recently?
Well, it's more than saber-rattling, because what we're looking at here is an escalatory spiral in which the United States has gradually increased the power, the range of the weapons that it's providing to Ukraine, and the Ukrainians, each time the U.S. moves forward, retaliate. And I do think the United States is in a difficult position here for a simple reason, and that is that Russia cares more about Ukraine than the United States does. How do we know that? Well, the Russians have lost 700,000, perhaps, soldiers. The United States hasn't put a single boot on the ground. And so really what's happening here is that each time the United States and its allies put more skin in the game, the Russians raise the ante by one. So here it is, I think, saber-rattling when it comes to the use of nuclear weapons, but not saber-rattling when it comes to new range, new scope of Russian attacks, because we know that Russia has already used this more sophisticated, faster hypersonic weapon to hit targets inside Ukraine.
Dr. Kapshin, do you feel there is going to be a continuous escalation till the 20th of January? Because there was a sudden, I would say, the pace at which matters are being escalated suddenly increased post 6th of November, when the permission was given to Ukraine, and after which the Oreshnik missiles were fired in return by Russia. And as of now, these kind of statements, certain figures are even mentioning it as World War III. These terms, this kind of language was never used before 6th of November. Ever since then, till 20th of January, do you feel we'll continuously seeing more escalation at this pace?
Yes, I mean, I do think that part of what's going on here is that both sides, the Ukrainians and the Russians, are trying to get in as good a position as possible, looking at what Trump might do when he takes office, and that is attempt to negotiate a ceasefire. The Biden administration, because it doesn't know whether Trump will continue aid to Ukraine, has been getting as much weaponry to Ukraine as possible between the election and the inauguration. It's also approved these deep strikes using ATACMS weapons, and it's also approved the use of cluster landmines. The Russians, in response, have increased the scope of air attacks against Ukraine, energy infrastructure in particular. The last few nights, some of the most significant and broad attacks against Ukraine that we've seen. So yes, I do think both sides are turning up the heat right now, because they know that it may be come January 20 that the United States inserts itself to try to broker a ceasefire. Will it work? Nobody knows, but I think it's safe to say that Trump is going to try.
Absolutely, Doctor. In fact, I just wanted to expand on that and what Shivan said as well. From what we've heard from Vladimir Putin, he appears to be keen for a Trump administration. That being said, everyone, of course, has been speculating on how a Trump administration would somehow try and broker a deal between Russia and Ukraine. So what's your assessment on that? What do you think will be Trump's first steps with regards to this?
Well, I think his first step will be to reach out to both Putin and Zelensky and try to begin a three-way conversation, and probably he'll bring in some NATO allies here, because they're an important part of the picture, to try to see whether there isn't common ground. And I think at the outset, Trump may make some progress. The easy part is the territory, and that's because a line of sorts will exist where the two forces meet. The front line becomes the line of contact. I think Trump is underestimating how difficult it will be to reach agreement with Russia on a host of other issues, including the geopolitical status of Ukraine. I think Russia may ask for neutrality. Ukrainians are not going to accept that. Russia may ask for caps on Ukrainian forces. Ukraine is going to say no. Russia may want NATO to pull back from its eastern frontier. I think NATO is going to say, no, we are not going to do that, because we need these forces to deter you from making other incursions, other attacks against possible NATO members. So this is going to be a tough negotiation. It's going to last a long time. I don't think that Trump is going to get what he said he's going to get, a deal within 24 hours.
But there's going to be a lot of weight on Keith Kellogg's shoulders. He's been appointed as the special envoy for Ukraine and Russia. Of course, that job is going to start the moment he comes into office. We will need to wait and watch what happens. But as of now, I think it's safe to say that we are going to be seeing more escalations in the lead up to the 20th of January. Thank you so much for joining us. That was Dr. Charles Kopchin joining us from Washington, D.C.
Bye-bye.
Right. We move further from here. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that he instructed the military to be ready for an intensive war in case of a breach of the ceasefire with Hezbollah in Lebanon.
And on Thursday, the Israeli military said that it carried out an airstrike targeting a Hezbollah rocket storage facility after detecting activity there. The military said it violated the truce. Israel also said it opened fire on people it described as suspects in returning in cars to parts of southern Lebanon. According to the state-run news agency, the firing wounded 2.
Nobody is playing tricks on us. We are enforcing strongly, but if required, I instructed the IDF to be ready in case there is a breach of the outline of the ceasefire for an intensive war.
Israeli military spokesperson David Mencer warned Hezbollah that fire will be met with fire and peace with peace.
IDF soldiers are still positioned in southern Lebanon, in villages and areas from which the forces will gradually withdraw in accordance with the agreement. Our Air Force are still in Lebanese airspace, gathering intelligence and prepared to act whenever and wherever necessary.
The agreement includes an initial 2-month ceasefire in which Hezbollah militants are to withdraw north of the Litani River and Israeli forces are to return to their side of the border. The World Health Organization welcomed the ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon but insisted on not forgetting the catastrophic situation in Gaza.
US President Joe Biden said this week that his administration would renew the push for a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas in the Gaza Strip. Turkish President Erdogan welcomed Biden's push for a new ceasefire initiative, saying that it was long overdue but an important step nonetheless. He was speaking alongside Oman's Sultan in Ankara.
Our position remains unchanged. Of course, we will not hesitate to do whatever is necessary to establish peace and calm in Gaza.
According to the Gaza Health Ministry, at least 24 hours, 48 people in the last 24 hours, at least 48 people were killed in the Strip, bringing the toll of more than 13 months of war between Israel and Hamas to 44,330.
Meanwhile, Yemen's Houthi rebels have spoken up in support of the Palestinians, ensuring them that they will keep up their attacks on Israel and their leaders. The group's spokesperson noted that this week there were strikes on Ashkelon, as well as the attack on the Israeli military airbase in Negev, Nevatim airbase, and on al-Rashras.
And a major escalation in the conflict in Syria. According to reports, Russian airstrikes on the Aleppo countryside have left at least 19 civilians dead.
Now, the airstrikes come as clashes between jihadist groups and Syrian government forces continue to rage in the country's northwest. The violence followed a surprise offensive by rebel factions, including Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, which has led to heavy fighting across several front lines. As the conflict intensifies, more than 200 combatants have been killed, including dozens from both jihadist groups and the Syrian army.
I have been displaced for 5 years, but thank God I am now fighting to reclaim our land from the grip of the criminal regime. We will persevere on this path and call upon the youth at homes to join us in the struggle to take back our country.
Rebel forces have reportedly cut off a key highway linking Damascus and Aleppo, further disrupting supply lines and increasing pressure on the government-controlled areas.
Amidst the clashes, a senior Iranian military general, Qamars Pursha Shemi has been killed in Aleppo during the fighting. Iran, a strong ally of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, confirmed the death of the general who had been providing military advisory support to Syrian forces.
The flare-up in northern Syria has shaken the region, with tensions between the US, Israel and Iran complicating the situation. As the fighting continues and the death toll rises, the future of Syria remains increasingly uncertain. China is breathing fire with Taiwan cozying up to its allies. Taiwan President Lai Ching-te is all set to embark on a trip to the Pacific now.
He will stop over in Hawaii and the US territory of Guam during the visit. The announcement has drawn a fresh vow from China. Calling Lai's planned visits as separatist actions, it is promised to resolutely crush any attempts for Taiwan independence.
Beijing claims Taiwan as its own territory and balks at any official contact Taipei has with other countries.
The Chinese People's Liberation Army shoulders the sacred mission of safeguarding national sovereignty and territorial integrity, and will resolutely crush all secessionist attempts for Taiwan independence and resolutely thwart any interference by outside forces.
Lai will visit the Marshall Islands, Tuvalu and Palau, the only Pacific island nation among Taiwan's 12 remaining allies. Reports suggest Lai will spend 2 nights in Hawaii and 1 night in Guam. He is likely to meet his old friends and think tank members.
First overseas trip since taking office in May. This is a crucial visit as it comes shortly after the US presidential elections. Taiwanese government officials have previously stopped over on US soil during visits to the Pacific or Latin America, angering Chinese leaders in Beijing.
We have consistently opposed official exchanges between the United States and Taiwan, opposed Taiwan leaders visiting the US under any name or any reason, and opposed any form of US conditioning and supporting Taiwan independent separatists and other separatist actions.
China, on the other hand, is likely to launch military drills in the coming days near Taiwan in wake of Lai's US transit. Reports say China could conduct military maneuvers around or shortly after Lai's trip, which ends on the 6th of December. China, which has never governed Taiwan, has sought to erase it from the international stage. It intends to block Taiwan from global forums, pressuring companies to list the island as a Chinese province on their websites. Beijing has already staged 2 rounds of major exercises around Taiwan this year to pressure Taipei, one in May, another last month.
Beijing hopes to draw a red line and establish its power as US President-elect Donald Trump comes to power. Taiwan sits in the so-called first island chain, which runs from Japan through Taiwan, the Philippines and on to Borneo, enclosing China's coastal seas. And this includes a list of US-friendly territories that are crucial to Washington's foreign policy in the region. Beijing wants to show the incoming US administration that the first island chain is China's sphere of influence. But China's increasingly aggressive behavior in the South China Sea has made Taiwan more significant to US calculations.
The United States is Taiwan's most important partner and main security backer, but does not recognize Taipei diplomatically. In recent decades, Taiwan has snapped ties with allies as they jump ship to China, which has deeper pockets to provide aid and investment. All right, and with that, it's time now for a short break.
talk show where we bring forth the stories of business leaders.
From breakthrough technologies to visionary leadership, we will unlock the trends, the tactics, and dive into the minds of the industry's most influential leaders.
WION brings you this special series to uncover what drives them in a candid talk show, WION Business Masters.
Thanksgiving is the easiest meal to make.
The Thanksgiving weekend puts everyone in a holiday mood, and we get you a list of movies to binge watch.
Hi, this is Jessel Tank, and you're watching me on WION.
Meet Jessel Tank, the real housewife of New York City, and know all about Hollywood stars and their journey to sobriety. All this and much more with me, Isha Hanspal, at these times only on WION eClub.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, world is one. From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Will Namibia be the next country in Southern Africa to kick out a political party in power since independence? Namibians ponder over that dilemma as they gear up for the general elections. Ugandan opposition figure Kizza Besigye appears in a military court in Uganda days after he was reported missing during a book launch in Kenya. His wife fears he will not get justice in the military court. And in Cape Town, it's a baboon fiesta. Hundreds of Chakma baboons roam Cape Town's seaside village of Simonstown, creating a nuisance. That's this week on Wild of Africa, at these times on WION. Wild is one.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
I think this WION Business Masters is actually a great show for two reasons. One, usually we are able to not talk about what goes on in the background of the companies as they were built over the last 10-15 years. And secondly, a lot of people at some point in their life, maybe thinking about whether they want to be in a job or they want to start their own companies. And it just gives them a perspective of some of the challenges that they may see as they take the decision.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching World DNA with Haim and I'm Shivan. Lots to discuss on this side of the show as well. Let's start with the headlines first.
British MP Bob Blackman in the UK House of Commons condemns the attacks on Hindus and the arrest of Hindu priest Chinmoy Krishnadas as minorities continue to be targeted in Bangladesh under Mohammad Yunus.
Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu threatens Hezbollah with an intensive war if it breaches Lebanon's ceasefire. IDF says it struck a Hezbollah weapons facility in South Lebanon and opened fire on people for breach of truce.
The United States tells Ukraine to lower its military recruitment age to 18 to address a severe shortage of manpower that has weakened its position on the battlefield and led to fastest gains, Russian gains, in 2 years.
US President Joe Biden warns against damaging relations with Canada and Mexico after Donald Trump threatens to slap tariffs on both neighbors when he takes office in January.
Pakistan security forces killed 4 terrorists, including a key ringleader named Batur in Bagh area of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. 3 terrorists injured in an intelligence-based operation on the militants' hideouts.
A cyclonic storm, Fengal, marches towards coastal areas of Tamil Nadu. Indian Meteorological Department issues red alert for 9 districts, warning of flash floods for several areas of Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh.
Sri Lanka bowled out for their lowest ever total in Test cricket history. South Africa's Marco Jansen takes 7 wickets to dismiss the visitors for 42 in the Durban Test.
India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar is set to brief Parliament on India's response to the recent attacks on Hindus and other minorities in Bangladesh.
This comes after Dr. S. Jaishankar met with Prime Minister Narendra Modi yesterday to discuss the situation in Bangladesh.
In the Indian state of West Bengal, demonstrations were held to protest against the arrest of Hindu leader Chinmoy Krishnadas, associated with the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, ISKCON. Protesters marched down to the Bangladeshi Deputy High Commission demanding immediate release of Das and also chanted slogans against the atrocities being committed against the minorities in the neighbouring country of Bangladesh.
Amid the attacks on Hindus and the attack on Hindu temples in Bangladesh, ousted Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina in a written statement attacking the Mohammad Yunus interim government says the current power grabbers are showing failure in all areas. She says that she strongly condemns these tortures directly and indirectly on common people.
ISKCON priest Chinmoy Krishnadas sparked protests in various locations of Bangladesh, including capital Dhaka and port city of Chittagong. The Hindu community has been calling for his release and justice for the Hindus who faced persecution since the ouster of former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina back in August.
Meanwhile, ISKCON also released a statement clarifying its position and support for Das's rights and also support for religious rights in Bangladesh.
Hindus in Bangladesh constitute about 8% of the 170 million population. The community has faced over 200 attacks since the fall of the Sheikh Hasina government.
Amid the unrest, a temple was also targeted by a mob in the port city of Chittagong.
Meanwhile, the government of India has voiced serious concerns over recent incidents of desecration and vandalism targeting Hindu temples and deities in Bangladesh. In a statement to the Parliament, Minister of State for External Affairs Kirti Vardhan Singh highlighted these troubling developments and reiterated India's call for ensuring the safety and security of Hindus and other minorities in Bangladesh who have been facing targeted persecution since the ouster of the Awami League and Sheikh Hasina.
And cyclonic storm Fengal is marching towards the coastal delta of Tamil Nadu.
IMD has issued a red alert for 9 districts of the state. Indian Meteorological Department has warned of flash floods for several areas of Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh. Now, the Indian Space Research Organization's satellites EOS-06 and INSAT-3DR are closely tracking the approaching cyclone. As per the current forecast by IMD, deep depression over the Bay of Bengal could develop into a weak cyclone before making landfall as a deep depression between Karaikal and Mambalapuram.
The Indian Navy has stepped up disaster preparedness to mitigate the cyclone's potential effects. A total of 17 teams of the national and state disaster response forces have been deployed. Tamil Nadu has prepared over 1,600 relief centers, though none of them have been used so far.
Meanwhile, schools and colleges have also declared holidays in various areas that fall on the path of a cyclonic storm. Depression is expected to travel close to Sri Lanka, but heavy rains have swept the east coast of island nation. 12 people have died due to floods and landslide in the country. According to authorities, on Thursday, 2 children and 2 men are still missing.
More than 250,000 people in Sri Lanka have been forced to flee after floods hit their homes. Hundreds of homes have been destroyed while several parts of the country have been inundated due to heavy rain and strong wind.
In a swift move, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum stated that Mexico has no plans to close its borders in response to US President-elect Donald Trump's earlier claims that she would stop immigration into the US.
The caravan that he put in his post, well, that caravan is not really going to reach the northern border because we have a strategy in place where it is being dealt with in our country.
Sheinbaum also mentioned that she did not specifically discuss tariffs in a call with Donald Trump a day earlier after Trump threatened a 25% import tax that appears to contravene a free trade pact.
The two discussed the cause of illegal migration and fentanyl trafficking issues for which Trump had threatened tariffs. Sheinbaum said at a morning news conference, adding that they will eventually discuss the flow of US firearms to criminal organizations in Mexico. Following the call on Wednesday, Trump and Sheinbaum had agreed to stop migration through Mexico and into the United States, effectively closing southern borders.
Sheinbaum also said that she asked Trump to end blockades against Cuba and Venezuela on call because they make people suffer and were a reason for migration. And the Consulate General of India, in partnership with Business School in Johannesburg, recently hosted the Malta Urja Energy Conference.
This two-day event brought together energy professionals, industry experts and academics to discuss global trends shaping the future of energy in South Africa and India. With a theme of energy synergies, the conference served as a platform to foster collaboration between these two nations as they work towards a more sustainable energy future.
The energy conference, named after Sesotho word Marta, meaning power, and Hindi word Urja, meaning energy, was an important meeting point for professionals and experts in the energy sector, focused on the theme of energy synergies. The event addressed critical topics such as energy transition, renewable energy sources, and investment opportunities for future growth. This year's conference explored the shared experiences and challenges of South Africa and India as they work towards a just energy transition. Experts highlighted the importance of creating a future energy mix, developing infrastructure, and finding innovative ways to finance energy projects. These discussions are vital for both countries as they strive to meet their energy needs and address climate change.
India, with its growing energy infrastructure, has made remarkable strides in the energy sector over the past decade. India's energy market is forecast to double in size over the next 7 years, reaching a valuation of $130 billion by 2030. And this growth is driven by innovations in energy equipment manufacturing and advancements in transmission and distribution technologies. As the world shifts towards renewable energy, both India and South Africa are exploring various sustainable sources like solar, wind and hydro energy to enhance their energy security. Now, in this context, Indian companies are playing a pivotal role in helping South Africa modernize and reform its energy infrastructure, making it more sustainable and ready for the future. Delegates also looked at the role of advanced metering systems to optimize energy consumption and improve efficiency across the board.
And as a key part of this collaboration, delegates will visit leading energy players in South Africa, including Sasol and ESCON later today. This will allow for a deeper understanding of South Africa's energy infrastructure and an opportunity for impactful engagement between the countries. Now, for more on this, our correspondent Kalden Ongmu has sent us this report. Take a look.
In South Africa, power cuts or load shedding is a very common phenomenon, but for almost 9 months, there has been no interruption in power supply. That's the longest break in more than 4 years, and South Africans aren't complaining. But in order to keep the lights on, government and private sectors need to continuously work to find better solutions. The Matla Urja Energy Conference brought together Indian and South African energy experts, industry players to discuss and share expertise on not just how to keep the lights on, but to discuss the future of energy infrastructure, the future energy mix, and energy efficiency initiatives. The industry experts also looked into possible areas of cooperation and collaboration which would further enhance the energy security of both the countries. This is Kalden Ongmu from Johannesburg, South Africa for WION World is One.
All right, next up, let's take a look at the developments from technology. ByteDance, the parent company of TikTok, has confirmed that it fired an intern for allegedly trying to sabotage its AI training. The company stated that the interference was limited to a research project within its commercial technology team and did not affect its main business operations or larger AI initiatives. ByteDance also denied reports claiming the intern's actions disrupted 8,000 GPUs or caused losses worth tens of millions of dollars, calling these allegations seriously exaggerated. The intern was dismissed in August and ByteDance notified their school about the incident. The company is reportedly developing new AI models using Huawei chips and is exploring its own AI chip production while continuing to face scrutiny from US officials over national security concerns.
Reddit has surpassed X to become the UK's fifth most popular social media platform. In May, 22.9 million UK adults visited Reddit, and slightly more than 22.1 million who used X. This marks a 47% year-on-year growth, marking Reddit and making it the fastest growing major platform in the country. The surge pushed Reddit ahead of both LinkedIn and X. Meanwhile, YouTube claimed the top spot, overtaking Facebook with over 44 million UK users. Experts suggest Google's search updates this year may have boosted Reddit's visibility. UK's communication watchdog also noted that changes in third-party app access likely drove more users directly to the site.
India is facing a surge in cyber fraud with scams like digital arrest schemes on the rise. In a recent case, a 25-year-old IIT Bombay student lost over $8,500 to scammers posing as officials from the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, TRAI. The scam began in July when the student received a call from someone claiming 17 complaints had been filed against his mobile number. The caller warned of a digital arrest if he did not follow specific instructions. Intimidated by the false allegations and fearing legal trouble, the student transferred the money in multiple transactions to the scammer's account. Digital arrest scams often involve fraudsters impersonating police or government officials. Now, recently, Prime Minister Modi highlighted the growing threat of digital arrest scams during his Mann Ki Baat radio broadcast. He clarified that no government agency conducts investigations via phone or video calls and urged people to remain cautious.
And Ruben Amorim got his first win as Manchester United manager. The Red Devils come from behind to beat Norwegian side Boro Glimt 3-2 in the Champions League.
Well, the result also marks a winning start for United at Old Trafford under Amorim. The Red Devils had scored off after 80